Japan Pot 83. Japan Pot 83. But the LDP depends on votes as well as funds, and it relies on small businessmen and especially on farmers for those votes. Since farmers in a locality tend towards block voting more than the floating urban votes, their interests are strongly represented in the Diet. Because Diet members support the interest of the farmers, Ministry of Agriculture cannot stray from interest of the farming community. Labour Union and their allies in the Socialist, Democratic, Socialist and Communist parties can also create difficulties in delaying and disrupting Diet progress if some effort is not made to accommodate their demands. The implicit sense of what constitutes a fair share takes account of the relative power, but there is public sympathy with the underdog, and this provides a balance wheel if rewards are in danger of becoming too one-sided. Despite symbolic gestures of vehement disagreement from these opposition parties, in fact, there is considerable compromise underlying most Diet action. In large part, this is because government leaders and even their business supporters recognize the advisability of granting them a fair share of the rewards of growth to ensure that they too have a stake in the system. These broad levels of agreement about equitable shares reduce the threat of the strikes, because special interest groups are unlikely to receive much more than their fair share, no matter how much they struggle, and the leaders are unlikely to give them much less. The system provides security and predictability without removing the flexibility of the companies to respond to social problems of economic fluctuation and to special opportunities for investment, because all other affected groups can be mobilized to prevent one group from getting an undue increase at any one point. Inflation control becomes immeasurably easier than the United States, and Hellick helps explain why the Japanese economy recovered so quickly from oil shock inflation and why it has maintained an inflation rate significantly lower than America's in recent years. Japanese homogeneity may make it easier to forge these understandings, but it is the constant effort, mutual awareness, and discussion that make it work. Procedures which are not inherently impossible to achieve in other societies, threats to old and new, overconformity and chaos. From about 1935 to 1945, the information reaching the Japanese public from abroad was for the most part highly restricted and heavily filtered. Only a small percentage of intellectual bureaucrats and people of culture could be considered sophisticated in understanding developments and thinking in the West. At the same time, with the expansion of Japan into Korea, Taiwan, and later into Manchuria and China proper, the military came to have a dominant role in the society. The democracy that had begun to sprout in the Meiji period and had expanded rapidly in form of the substance in the 1920s proved fragile under pressure from the military.